Okay, hello and welcome. This recording is supplementary material for the textbook Communication, New Media and Everyday Life to be published later this year in 2011 by Chalkley et al. That's me, well, some of it's me. I'm Brad Warren, and this is a greatest hits of some of the theoretical concepts that are covered in the text. So, here we go. Without further ado, let's start with some heavy stuff. We're going to start with modernism and postmodernism. Now, this seems like kind of an obvious thing to say, but it's actually not possible to understand post anything unless you first have an understanding of that which comes before. You get lots of people sitting around in cafes and the word postmodernism comes up, and you get a lot of kind of semi-glazed looks and people nodding and looking kind of smart, or trying to anyway. So yeah, postmodernism or postmodernity, one of those very confusing terms. In order to understand it, we need to take a step back. So let's look at modernity. Modernity has been said to be characterised by the following: by the partial replacement of religion by human values such as liberty, equality, fraternity, individualism, the rise of science and scientific method, a belief in reason, rationality, and the civilising effects of culture and technology, and a belief in progress. The idea was that through bettering ourselves and making progress, people believed that they could find the answers to all of the big questions. Okay, now by the way, that summary, Birch et al., is one of the best that I've ever come across. Modernity is a really, really big area of study, and to find it so succinctly phrased like that, very good. So hats off to Mr. Birch, Professor Birch, in fact. Okay, or to put all of that into a nutshell, modernity can be summarised as the pursuit of bigger, better, faster, more. Moving on. Post-modernity or postmodernism, more than anything else, can be said to be characterised by a lack of faith in the modernist project. That is to say, postmodernists, rather than trying to find ultimate answers to all of the big questions, gave up on the endeavour and said, not only can we not find ultimate answers, we don't even know what the big questions really are. Likewise, in addition to not being able to find ultimate answers to things, postmodernists argue that there are no final correct meanings. Meanings under postmodernism are constantly shifting and changing. Ever transient meanings, shifting signifiers, if you like, for anyone who's into semiotics. Now, there are several defining phenomena associated with postmodernism. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. These things include, and I'll talk about each of them, hyperreality is one, simulacra is another, pastiche is a third, and I'll go through each of those in turn. Now, first of all, hyperreality. Hyperreality, as you can see from the slide there, anyone who's got any vision at all, given the size of it, reality imitating media, imitating reality. But what does that mean? Interaction of society with media in a cyclic process. Here we go. Work with me on this. I've got a little story to share with you, and hopefully it'll all come clear by the end. Story begins like this. Master X wants to be a suicide bomber, but he doesn't know how to go about it. I mean, he knows that you're supposed to have a cause, something to believe in, that you're prepared to die for and all of that, but Master X doesn't have anything like that. He just thinks it's all kind of exciting and it'll look good on his resume. So anyway, Master X went away and he studied up how to, like he Googled all of the local terrorist cells and studied up on how to make his own explosives out of common household ingredients. And by the way, don't try this at home. People watch what you look at on the internet. I mean it. I'm not kidding. Don't do it. Anyway, but Master X did it and got himself all set. But then he still didn't know exactly what to do. So, sitting there, somewhat perplexed, watching television, and then, so from his point of view anyway, something fantastic happened. There was a plane hijacking on the news. Okay, let's just stop here and take a step back. I need to give you some background information on that plane hijacking. Now, a plane hijacking takes place, and there were a series of improbable coincidences associated with it. In the first instance, there was somebody aboard that plane with an iPhone or some such, with enough recording power on it to record all 3 hours and 27 minutes of the hijacking and get the whole thing. Now that's the first improbable coincidence. Second improbable coincidence is that the person in question with that iPhone managed to record the whole thing in all of its grisly detail without any of the terrorists stopping casually to put a bullet in his brain. It's the second one. Now, at this point, the guy with the camera leaves our story. We don't know what became of him. But we do know that eventually, this is improbable coincidence number 3, the camera made its way into the hands of a rookie reporter from Master X's local television station. And the reporter was all very excited, thought he was going to win all sorts of journalism awards, went to his producer and gave this pitch for a 3 hour, 27 minute real-time documentary on the whole thing. And the producer, who'd been in the game somewhat longer, said, yeah, well, nah, I'll tell you what, you can't have 3 hours and 27 minutes, but it's good stuff, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds on tonight's news. Now, the reporter was somewhat disheartened, and he went away and cried a bit, but then he did what he was told and cut his material down, picked all of the best bits, all of the most exciting footage from the 3 hours and 27 minutes of recording and put it all together in one 90-second extravaganza. And that was what aired on the nightly news. And that's what Master X saw. Now, where am I going with all of this? Wait for it, we're getting there. What Master X saw, he said, this is a how-to guide, this is fantastic. I now know exactly what I've got to do. So he picked up his homemade C4, strapped his Bowie knife firmly in his teeth, and off he went to stage his own hijacking. Now, the camera edited the edited footage. We were talking about hyperreality, remember? So there was a point to all this. The edited camera footage is not hyper-reality. It's just edited camera footage. It's what Master X did with that footage, how he responded to it, how it fed back into his own actions, how he interpreted it as a window on reality, where really it wasn't. It was a hyper, if you like, sped up, exaggerated, because they took only the best bits version of reality. Now, so Master X went out and he staged his own hijacking. And, well, he was planning to stage his own hijacking. Actually, he got arrested at the bottom of the drive. But had he staged his own hijacking, hypothetically at least, he might have done so in, I don't know, only 2 hours and 14 minutes or something like that, and so on and so forth. Now, at this point, Hang on, other than Ed L, did I introduce myself? I don't think I did. Oh, I did? Okay. At this point, you might be going, Brad, that's stupid. And you know what? You'd be right. But I use the example to illustrate a point. The point is about media feeding back into the society that produced it and producing a hyperreal effect in how it's picked up. Now, this particular example, as I said, the best word to describe it is stupid. But have a think about this. What about ads for perfume, say? Okay? How many ads have you seen of women in women's magazines where the women in the pictures are not photoshopped? That is exaggerated, made to be hyper-real, except they're not hyper-real, they're just exaggerated. The thing is, that too feeds back into society, okay? Not in terms of women in society buying the perfume and it making them more beautiful. There's an irony there, by the way. Ethanol-based substances don't change your looks one iota unless you consume rather a lot of them. That notwithstanding, the exaggerated images of women at sort of a subconscious level feed into the people that are viewing, feed into the minds of the people that are viewing the commercials, and they pick up on it and they go out and purchase. Okay, the feedback into society is in terms of perfume sales. Okay, because the images of the women in the ads are exaggerated at some sort of level, some women will go, oh, I'd really like to be like that, and as a result they'll go out and they'll buy the perfume. I'm not quite sure that it's quite as conscious as that, but that's the gist. And stats on this stuff show that it works. Anyway, enough about Master X and his homemade C4, which was about as dangerous as cookie dough in the end, but never mind. Simulacra. Copies of copies of copies. Now, we talked about briefly the possibility of multiple transient meanings under postmodernism. Some of postmodernism's greatest advocates, people like Jean Baudrillard and Frederick Jameson, among others, they've kind of got a bit of a negative bent to them, and it goes something like this. Meaning is forever shifting and transient, they say. Okay, that's cool, I can deal with that. But they take what seems to me a logical argument to an illogical extreme, in that they say everything is shifting and transient, meaning is never fixed, and here's the leap, therefore nothing means anything anymore, and they all go away and get very depressed about it. I actually like postmodern theory up to that leap into the ridiculous. Anyway, simulacra, copies of copies of copies. The idea is that originals and meaning gets lost somewhere. Media reports report on other media reports and so on and so forth, and along the way meaning gets diluted and gets lost, and as I said, it's said to collapse altogether at an illogical extreme. Now, I don't buy it. Imagine a news footage of a tsunami, say. Sure, the news footage is not as dramatic, scary, terrifying, devastating as actually being there and experiencing it. And I'll even grant you that repeated exposure to footage or re-recorded footage of said tsunami, and it'll start to get a bit old over time, start to lose some of its impact upon you. But I'd argue that even the harshest of us would not, I think we'd all feel something. To say that meaning becomes completely lost is, as I say, to overstate the case somewhat.